Good evening, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Fort Wayne Community Schools Board of Trustees. We begin each meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And roll call of members.
Good evening, Steve Corona from the 5th District.
Good evening, Glenna Yale from the 2nd District.
Tom Smith, 3rd District.
Maria Norman, Member at Large.
Ann Duff, Member at Large.
Jordan Lebemoff, the 4th District.
And I'm Julie Hollingsworth, elected from District 1. And to my far left is Janet Doherty, the Clerk of the Board. Good evening. And our Superintendent, Dr. Wendy Robinson. Good evening. So we have a couple of awards and recognitions tonight. And the first is we have some guests here from Takaoka, Koshimi, Japan. It's recommended that the board recognize students and leaders from Takaoka, Koshimi, Japan, who are visiting Northside High School this week. Through Sister Cities International, Takaoka, Koshimi, Japan, and Fort Wayne have enjoyed a sister cities relationship since 1976. Since that time, there have been many exchanges between the two cities as artists, musicians, government officials, and students have participated in special events in both communities. The sister school relationship between Takaoka and Fort Wayne Community Schools goes back some 43 years. Good math. Other sister school relationships include Plock, Poland, Gira, Germany, and Taizhou, China. While here, the visitors from Japan will spend time at Northside High School and tour Fort Wayne attractions. So if the principal from Northside, David West, and our visiting leader from Japan, Shunsuke Tsuchida, would come forward, they are going to introduce the various members of their delegations.
He is actually going to do the interpretation of all of them because he speaks very, very good English, so I'm going to let him do it. Good evening, everyone.
Good
Good evening.
Yeah, we 7 Japanese are coming from Takaoka City, your sister city. Yeah, it's good to meet you, and I'm very glad to be here. Yeah. Okay. Now I introduce students from Takaoka City and then their host. Okay. The first, Louis Akeno and Xavier Lemke.
I can come out and shake hands. I knew I couldn't be named, but I could shake hands.
Yep.
You want to line them up?
All right. Sayaka Eto and Hei Mu.
Hi, Steve Corona. Hi.
Hey, good evening.
Tatsuya Hirano,
Konbanwa.
Nate Zepeda.
Welcome.
Konbanwa.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for hosting.
Hello.
There. I like Lisa.
Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to Fort Wayne.
Welcome.
Stephanie.
Thank you for hosting.
My sophomore year was an
Taiki Nakagawa, Tera and Carter Moisling.
Hi, welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Howdy. Hi.
You're being a host. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Meet you.
Ayaka Minami, Victory Paul.
Nice to meet you. Welcome. Thank you.
Hello.
Good to meet you. Hi.
Welcome. Yes. Thanks
Nice
for
to meet
being
you.
a host. Welcome.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
And Mayumi is also the city hall.
Yeah, I try to do my best. Yeah, the City Hall.
Okay. And Mayumi Minami from City Hall in Takaoka.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for hosting.
She's our assistant.
Okay, Ashley Finland.
Yeah, Dave, your host.
Okay.
Yes, we're good. Yeah, a couple more.
And Ashley Heyman.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
And David Berg. He's my host.
Gotta be nice to him.
Thank you.
All right, they're just taking pictures. All right.
All right, thank you.
Come close and take pictures. Wait, Krista, what are we doing? How do you want it? Oh, we have the guest
Form a couple rows.
and the host in the back. Okay, and if you're height challenged like me, make sure your head's between somebody.
Scoot in, scoot in.
Height challenge, get in the front. Oh, sure, come on up. Now you have to introduce her. All right. Can you get us? Are we too far apart? Okay, squish, that's a good word, squish.
Tiptoes there, David.
Can you see everybody? Okay. Hurry.
Hey, David,
Okay, wait.
did you want to say anything about?
The person that's
what
coming
kind
up
of
is Julie
activities
Williams.
you're
She's
doing, or-
the president for the Sister Cities.
Okay, you might as well get in too. Come on. She's on the board.
Oh, cool.
All right, smile now.
Okay, thanks.
Get it? Is that it? Well, you just go, well, wait, somebody has to do this for you, else you're not in the picture. Not me. One of your many talents, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
You want to do that now? As they leave tonight's meeting, they're going back over to Faith for dinner.
Oh, nice,
So,
great.
You want to explain?
Okay.
Okay. Yes, that's fine.
Hello everyone,
Hello.
Hello.
my name is Mayumi Minami. The 7 of us come from Takaoka City, Toyama Prefecture, Japan. We are happy to be here and to meet everyone from Fort Wayne, Takaoka's sister city. Since we will be staying from March 10th to March 21st for the student exchange, we look forward to getting to know you all over the next 10 days. We'll have the, oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, over the next 10 days, we will visit several interesting places. Some of the favorite things actually that we had students from Taizhou a few years ago, and we actually taking them to a farm and actually seeing a dairy farm, agricultural farm. But we're also going to businesses in the city of Fort Wayne and to Parkview. That's a highlight. We actually get to go to the Cancer Center at Parkview. They've actually did a walking tour today of the city. And we have some other activities planned. We have a cultural event on Friday night at Northside starting at 6:30 where our students are going to perform. So I'm interested to see that. I won't be able to be there because we will have the state jazz band going on at the same time. So we are very excited to have them here, and we had a great start to yesterday and today.
Are they going to get to see Big Mama that's boring underneath the city of Fort Wayne? What's it called?
Mama Joe.
Mama Joe, that's right, Mama Joe.
I don't know if that's on there
I
yet,
remember. Oh, okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
but we do have a flexible schedule, so we can always add. We're always
I
up for
call the
anything.
mayor's office.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that information, Maria. Turn to my left next time.
Madam President and Dr. Robinson, I just want to make sure that before they leave town, our official ambassador should be Glenna Yale, in as much as she is 50% Japanese, and she was hurling some words at him that wasn't Spanish. So I think she still remains very fluent in Japanese.
And we can.
Not fluent, no, no, no. I did my sophomore year abroad in Japan, so I learned some
Yeah.
Japanese
That's
back
great.
then because
Yeah.
we are immersed in the culture. But if you don't use it all the time, guess what? You get real rusty real fast.
But you know what we'll do, Mrs. Jill, seriously, is get their schedule, and you just feel free wherever they are if you want to pop in, because I think that would be
That
welcome
would be cool.
for somebody from the board who actually speaks their language, so
Okay.
we'll do that.
Great,
if you don't
thank you.
mind. And you're not obligated, but
No,
we'll
but
still
I'll
do
look
that.
at the schedule and see what
Yeah.
we can work out.
We let you go to dinner, but you have a board meeting.
I have a board meeting. Ducks.
Okay, and next, the group of students that delayed my entry into the boardroom was because I was looking at all the Future City competition displays out there. We now want to recognize Blackhawk, Jefferson, Kikianga, and Lane Middle Schools for their placements in the Future City competition. The Future City competition is a national education program for middle school students sponsored by the National Engineers Association. It combines a stimulating engineering challenge with a hands-on application to present the team's vision of a city of the future. It requires problem-solving, teamwork, research, and presentation skills, practical math and science application, and computer skills. All team members have an important role that is necessary for the completion of the project. The 2018-19 challenge was design a future city that incorporates a resilient power grid that can withstand and quickly recover from the impacts of a natural disaster. Great. So, Blackhawk team Tuitsu Ryoku addressed the threat of a tsunami. They placed first in the Indiana Regional Competition and qualified for the National Future City Competition in Washington, D.C. Wow. And the Jefferson team Tierra del Sol addressed earthquakes in Chile, and they placed fourth in the Indiana Regional Competition.
That's great.
The Kikianga team, Atarashi Kibo, addressed electrical grid resiliency and flooding in Japan, and they placed fifth in the Indiana Regional Competition. And Lane Team Mizzou addressed the power grid for a natural disaster, and they placed third in the Indiana Regional Competition. Great. So first we will recognize the team members from Blackhawk Middle School, and please come forward as your names are read. We have Aluwadi Ilare Adeosun. Was I close? Was I even close?
That's good.
And you say your name loudly.
Olua Damalari Adiosin.
Okay.
That's you. That sounds like you.
Sounded just like the
It's hard to begin. You said it very well.
Gregory Perry. Joseph Reidenauer. Timothy Schwanz. Maggie Slynn. Carter Westfall. With the trophy.
Oh, first place. Very cool.
That's as close as I would get.
And mentor, Richard Kwolek. Eva Trout, district coach. Nicholas Balmoria, teacher. And Zachary Harrell, stepping in for the principal at Blackhawk, we have Cassandra Perry from Blackhawk.
18 years doing this project.
Wow.
propaganda on the way out, please pass it out to the board. Parents, stand up if you need to get a good picture. We'll wait. Don't move. Is that it? You should smile, this is a big deal.
And Mr. Balmoria, do you want to give us just, let us, when's the national competition?
Already happened.
Oh, already happened?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And we came
Thank
back,
you.
we just got the word last week, got 11th place out of 45 teams.
Wow, great. Congratulations. Nicely done, nicely done. Congratulations, everyone.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
See you next week.
All right.
Okay, next we have the team from Jefferson Middle School, Team Tierra del Sol. We have Annalise Pizarro. Jacob Harold. Alyssa Malinowski. Olivia Wheeler. And we have mentor Ronald Crouch. Teacher Jeannie Love. And principal Jeff King.
That's why you put the microphone in. All right. Smart people in the front and the rest of us in the back. If you need a picture, you need to be in the front. Take your time, we'll wait. Is that it? Congratulations.
Congratulations. And next from Kikianga Middle School, we have Team Atarashi Kibo. We have Ian Bourne. McKaylee Bourne. Evan DeClementi Ross.
I love that.
Rory Gadboy.
And now watch that thing.
Gabriela Gonzalez. Cody Hatfield. David Norman. Nathaniel Pickett. Jude Radachak. Nope. Teacher Kate Curlis. Teacher Courtney Painter. And Principal Matt Schiebel.
You too. Thank you. All right, so come on, 2 lines. Scoochie. No, he said, I can't. Parents, stand up if you need to. Nicely done. I like the size of your team there.
Good job.
Thank you.
And next we have Lane Middle School, Team Mizzou. Katie Callahan. Michaela Groff. Emily Henry. Kiara Mann. Noah McCowan. Whitney Murphy. Sydney Singh. Eli Sudafong. Allison Tipsword. Elizabeth Valdez. And teacher Shelby Johnston. And principal Matthew Heron.
All right. Can everybody see?
Hey.
You guys get the award for the best T-shirt.
Yeah.
I like that. I'd like to get one of those.
Sure.
Okay. Hold on. Take your time. Okay, now parents, hold on. Everybody turn around so you can see the back. Let's take a Parents, come back. That's cool.
That is cool.
Okay?
Love it.
Nicely done.
Good job.
Is that it,
All right.
parents? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
Oh, thank you.
And the best part, of course, is getting to look at the projects and having the students explain to you, communicate to you exactly what was involved in their project and how it works, and that's what took me so long.
Yeah.
That's the fascinating part about it to me. The whole, you can just tell, number one, they're proud of what they did and how much they learned. So that's a cool project.
You know, one of the things I'm going to say to Ms. Nichols is that I think they take them back to their school. We'll have those kids stand around and explain their project, videotape it and put it on the
Oh, yeah.
web.
Yeah,
Because it
cool.
was phenomenal. And they were so proud of what they did, and they could actually explain things that we didn't have any clue what they were talking about, but it was impressive,
yeah.
and they knew.
Right.
So we'll do that and put it on the website.
Okay, great. Okay, now we have the always exciting consent agenda. That involves, these are things that come to us every meeting. They include approval of the minutes from the previous meeting on February 25th, vouchers and payroll, vouchers from the period ending March 11th, and payroll for the period ending February 19th, and then the personnel report. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Maria. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and Dr. Robinson, was there anything in the personnel report you wanted to highlight?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. So now, we move on to new business. And first, we have the Indiana Department of Education Digital Learning Grant. It's recommended that the board approve the application for and acceptance of a 2019-20 digital learning grant from the Indiana Department of Education in the amount of $49,949.50. This competitive grant will provide funds to take digital learning in Fort Wayne Community Schools to the next level. Fort Wayne Community Schools hopes to strengthen our middle school STEM, STEAM, CTE programs by providing the foundational skills middle school students need to be successful in these programs. Fort Wayne Community School middle school students will have greater access to high-quality and equitable learning experiences that are specifically designed to increase digital literacy schools. These requested funds for 2019-20 will be used in our 11 middle schools. 2, purchase materials and lessons to be embedded in the 6th through 8th grade science curriculum that we developed and written this summer. Each middle school will receive 2 3D printers, MySTEMKits.com science, math, and coding curriculum, access to Tinkercad.com, vidcode.com, and a system of supports to ensure successful and equitable implementation. To support Fort Wayne Community School teachers through the implementation of hands-on learning activities that support student mastery of science and engineering process standards, Indiana academic standards, and ISTE standards. This grant addresses Goal 1, achieve and maintain academic excellence, and questions will be answered by Rachel Dickerhoof, our curriculum coordinator. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Julie. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Glenna. Thanks, Maria. So any questions for Rachel? Okay, so what's Tinkercad.com, Rachel, and what's I think I can figure out MySTEMKits.com, but what's vidcode.com? And vidcode I think I got too, but.
VidCode is also a coding program that is Java-based and would support our students using a different language. Tinkercad.com is a free resource that we can use with the 3D printing that helps students design their project, work through those design processing steps, and then send it to the 3D printer.
And like, how big is one of these 3D printers?
It's about the size of a microwave oven.
That's all?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are larger ones, but the type that we would use in a classroom is about the size of a microwave.
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions? Have you used one?
I have.
Okay,
I'm very excited.
great. I had a vacuform once. You know what that is?
I can guess. I'll be glad to
Showing
teach
my
you.
age.
I'll be glad to teach you how to use a 3D printer.
Okay, great. I may take you up on that.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Rachel. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we have the appointment of a project architect for Price Elementary School renovation. This is from the 2016 bond project. It's recommended that the board approve the appointment of a project architect and engineer for the following project. Price Elementary School renovation. The architect engineer is Design Collaborative. The design contract fee is $334,000, and the estimated construction budget is $4,420,000. Indiana law requires that projects over $100,000 make use of a registered architect or professional engineer for developing plans and specification. Project architects, engineers need to be appointed now to allow sufficient time for planning and bidding of the project to ensure construction start during the summer of 2020. This project will be funded from the 2016 School Building Basic Renewal, Restoration, and Safety Project. The questions will be addressed by Director of Facilities Darren Hess. Do we have a motion and second?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Ann. So, any questions for Darren?
Darren, is there I slept since the last time we approved one of these. Do we bid this out and then go with the lowest bidder, or they design and then we go based off design, or how did we land on design collaborative?
Yeah, they fall in the professional services, how we procure them, and we do that through a request for qualifications process.
Okay.
So we review, we have a team of administrators and facilities, and we shortlist and then interview. And it's a mix between qualifications and price, but not just low bid.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Darren. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we have the Spooler Stadium synthetic turf installation. It's recommended that the board approve the following construction contract for the installation of synthetic turf at Spooler Stadium at Northrop High School. The total contract from the Motts Group is $948,991. The project was designed and procured through the Wilson Education Foundation and Indiana Approved Educational Purchasing Cooperative Program. Engineering Resources, Inc. assisted with the project's civil design and approval with the local authorities. This project is identified in the Capital Projects Plan with funding from the Operations Fund. Project specifications require the work be completed by August 2nd, 2019. And members have been provided with a diagram of what the field will look like. And questions will be addressed by Director of Facilities Darren Hess. Do we have a motion and a second?
Move for approval?
Second.
Okay, thanks Glenna, thanks Steve. So, questions?
Darren, remind us all why the need to move into the synthetic turf. What sort of problems are we currently having on the field?
Well, Spooler Stadium hosts Snyder and Northrop football games. I believe 42, 44 games a year. Depending on weather, if we have any rain, it gets torn up quite quickly. But we often have to move games at the end of the year to Wayne High School or another stadium. It also allows us flexibility. You know, we're not able to host sectionals and regional events, larger band competitions, because they're moving to other facilities that have turf, that they're guaranteed they're going to have a nice field to play on depending on the weather, so they can set it up ahead of time. It's a tired turf as is, and it takes quite a bit of time and effort to keep it in shape every week for a game.
And we've exhausted our possibilities of doing additional drainage and remediating the existing field.
Yeah, we have had multiple projects there where we've had drainage improvements. It's just simple use, and this gives us more flexibility to use it for other events as well, and instead of just keeping it for Friday night football.
Okay.
Did we lose band competition contests as well because of the status of the field?
That is correct.
And so the Big Orange Pride had to go elsewhere to perform?
Yeah, I can't speak to exactly which events we lost, but I know we've lost opportunities to host events because we were not able to guarantee the condition of the field.
Yeah, I know in the past Northrop has hosted like ISMA regionals and things like that years ago. So
The one question I had, and Julie and I have a different opinion on this, is in the rendering that board members were given from the Motts Group, the midfield logo or design is that of the Northrop Bruin, the bear. And I know that this is also the home field for Snyder, and I don't think that they are the Bruins. I think they're the Panthers, right?
Correct.
And I know that Dayton School District also has a synthetic surface used by multiple schools, high schools. I don't think they have a logo on it. And I know the field is at Northrop High School, but it's really a Fort Wayne Community Schools property. And I'm wondering if, I like the project, but I'm wondering if the two schools and the athletic directors can figure out at least in my opinion, something that's going to work for both schools. I don't know what that is. There's probably 5 or 6 ways to do it, but I would hope that something can be resolved, or if nothing, that there's no logo at midfield. I like the project. I know that other schools, both at the high school and college level, have moved this way. And given the amount of play, the amount of contests that are scheduled, athletic and non-athletic, this is really a good move for us. So I just...
And I have the opposite view, and I'm a Snyder grad. All my siblings went to Snyder, but I do think it's Northrop's field, and if I had to bet, it's also Snyder's, I mean, I understand that, but it is on Northrop's property. I would say Snyder's probably used that to their advantage a little bit over the years. They might have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder when they head over to Northrop to play, and any coach will tell you that's not really a bad thing. But I know logos are not cheap. Didn't you say, Kathy, another logo would be maybe what, $30,000?
Roughly 13 to 15.
Oh, 13 to 15? Okay, okay, depending on size?
Correct.
Okay.
If I could, though, I think that one of the things, it won't be left to the athletic directors. I think that's a conversation we had at Cabinet. The other thing is, I do think we talked about during budget time, we're not a one high school town. And so we've got to deal with the south side field, and as we get to looking at what we need to do at Wayne. So we talked extensively, and we'll talk about how it's identified as Snyder, but we've actually talked when Snyder plays there, but we actually talked about that. And then when the other schools have to have something done to theirs, will it be generic? Because most schools want their school logo. So this is a very weird situation. We gave up as a district a long time ago the ability to build a stadium for Snyder, longer probably than most of us were alive. And I just think that we've talked about it at Cabinet, and I appreciate right now I can't even get 2 board members to agree. So I think that we'll come back, but that is Northrop's field.
Oh, it is, okay.
And we need to honor some way for Snyder when they're playing.
I don't have any problem.
To feel that it's their field.
The only thing that surprised me is I do see that it's also aligned for soccer. And I know there's some controversy over playing soccer on turf, just because, you know, the nature of the game, much different than football. But I assume that this is something that the coaches want?
Yes, we've talked to both the athletic directors, and they were fine with it. It gives us more flexibility on scheduling. And another option with a turf field, too, is that we'll be able to invite the middle schools to come over and play a game under the lights, too. You know, so, you know, Jefferson Middle School can come over and play a soccer match, you know, underneath the light. So it just gives us more opportunities to expose other students and
I mean, I think it looks kind of busy, but I do understand that we need to have multi-use facilities, and so I'm good with that. The only thing I want to make sure of is that there are equal numbers of girls and boys games played on that field, and I will be tracking it, as Dr. Robinson knows.
We had a Title IX work session today, updating all administrators on Title IX. And that should not be an issue anymore. We've had 2 or 3 years of that, and we totally support Title IX, so that'll be a part. But this also allows us more flexibility, because if you heard what Darren was talking about, I think we put it in the information you received. When you're not on a field like that, kids, when it gets dark, you stop. So we really have no flexibility in scheduling, especially as middle schools and others want to play games too. So.
If I could ask 2 additional questions about money to Darren and maybe Kathy Friend. First of all, the amount is $948,000 and change, almost $949,000. What does the company project the life? How many seasons will we see this turf stand up to?
The typical lifespan of a synthetic turf field is 10 to 12 years, depending on use and
So
care.
it's come away, because I know in longevity, because I know some of the earlier fields, synthetic turf fields, had to be replaced at a much more accelerated rate.
Correct.
So they've made them a little bit more durable. And also, with respect to budget, Kathy, this fits into the plans that we had for this year?
Yep.
Okay. So it doesn't take away from any money we've budgeted for wages or benefits from employees, teachers, or otherwise?
Nope, it fits in the budget for the turf.
What about the maintenance costs going forward to take care of this versus, the natural grass and keeping that field, playable?
Yeah, it's less labor intensive. We don't have to irrigate it. We don't have the expend of water and sewer. We don't have to fertilize it, so we're saving on fertilizer. We don't have to put it to bed per se, overseed, bring in extra soil. So there's a lot of labor cost savings. We have to paint the field with lining paint. This is carpet, so the line's already in it. There is every 40 hours, there's a comb apparatus behind a tractor that you basically level out the chrome rubber, but they provide that. And once a year, they recommend a deep clean, disinfectant, and redo the GMAX test to certify its playability for concussions and that.
Yeah, explain that GMAX.
So they perform a test. It's a little different than like the playground head injury criteria test because you're not really falling from a 6-foot height. I hope not. But it is a test that they do that there's a procedure in place, and it has to be less than, I believe, 200. They put a max at 175, and they maintain under their warranty that they always are going to be within that. But it's a good practice to do to annually do that, to recertify the field.
And what about the maintenance? Are we going to, was this contract include any training, for example, for our groundskeepers to do that, or?
The contract includes an 8-year bumper-to-bumper warranty. So, I mean, they come out and fix anything with the field whatsoever within 48 hours. And then they provide training at the turnover of the field, and then any additional training as we have staff turnover or we need it. They want to bring other potential suitors to the field and take a look at it. We visited East Allen's and they just raved about how excellent they were on training and support. So that was one of the selling points of this group.
Okay, great. And, usually athletes wear different shoes when they play on turf, correct? You may wear cleats on grass.
No metal cleats.
Right.
It'll tear.
Right. So, we have a lot of students that play athletics that may not have, it in their family budget to buy another pair of, specialty sports shoes. So I don't know if, we have any way of helping out with that.
I'm not aware of what is required right now.
Of course, I know booster clubs and schools do a lot of fundraising and teams do a lot of fundraising for things like that. So I just hope that's, I don't want that to be an issue.
I'm not sure if football has metal cleats allowed. Yeah, just baseball.
Right. But football and soccer wear cleats, and cleats are not recommended for turf. That's what I'm saying. There are turf shoes that are recommended for turf.
I think that one of the things Faye has as a part of the Faith Center, K-12 athletics, K-12 music, and one of the things she's formed, John Key is the elementary representative and Carlton is the secondary. They've got committees looking at how we not only worry about the equipment, but worrying about how are we going to talk to coaches and kids about the difference in playing on like grass and turf. So I think that's something we'll just make sure that we always have to figure out how kids can take part in certain things like that. So noted. We've got 2 people here on that committee, and we'll come back and talk about that. It'll only be a bigger issue as we look at what we have to do with the other fields.
What are our teams doing when they go visit a school and play on turf at another facility?
Probably have shoes.
So whatever shoes they're using there should be fine here, I would think. I mean,
it's still a mixed bag, but most schools are turf. So just let us tell you, we'll bring back, what are we talking to kids about? What are we saying to parents? How are we supporting kids? But I think I'm as concerned about the maintenance of the field. I'm more concerned about the training of the adults and the kids. What's the difference in turf and grass? And how do we kind of talk about that before we start playing on it? So we'll come back, Faye, John, as a part of your committee work, we'll kind of talk through that.
Okay. Ann, you sound like you had a question?
Well, I did, but now I don't remember, but I'll, I put that topic anyway, but I guess you're moving a lot of the track, like shot put, long jump, high jump, those will no longer be on the,
The only thing that's going to get relocated is the shot put. They don't recommend the shot put on the turf, so that's the only thing that's going to move to the outside of the oval. Right now, the existing location for pole vault and a long jump are outside the oval,
Okay.
and high jump can still stay on the oval.
So that's what this box is right here, the high jump area?
That is correct.
Okay.
and will the track be redone as well?
It was redone last summer already, and then
Okay.
drainage improvements and all new surface.
Okay.
I had a question. I asked 7 questions before the meeting, so thank you. Sorry that I needed an essay back. I had a question about the band competition. So we talked about we've lost band competitions due to our lack of, I don't know, acceptable facilities. With regard to the funds brought in at those band competitions, would those be shared among the schools? Does that just go back into like Northrop's music boosters, or how would that work?
Well, it depends on if it's an event that's like a invitational or something hosted by Northrop, they would be the ones that would receive the benefit of those funds. If it's an ISMA event, they may have to share with other schools. But, I can remember my son participated in, it's been over 10 years ago since probably Northrop was able to host a marching band competition there because the field just couldn't stand it anymore. So, and that was a Northrop hosted event. So it'd be like a fundraiser for their marching band.
And then I know that we said that this is in the budget. Having just been to the ISTA rally on Saturday, it just seemed like bad time to approve a project like this. So I don't know if anybody...
I have a theory on this, and I discussed it with Kathy. For the last, even after we cut transportation, we have been unable to find, 15, 20 bus drivers a year? So that is, unfortunately, savings to us. And I don't know what 15, 20 bus drivers, salary and benefits would be, but, that could be $250,000 or more a year. And so that money was stuck in the transportation fund, correct? For the last 3 years. Well, so now, with the operations fund, and those are all combined, that is one advantage of the flexibility that we've been given by the state.
And when we presented this as part of the budget in the capital projects plan last summer, really that was part of the reasoning of bringing it forward now, because this has been something that we knew needed to be done in order to make that field a more viable use for our students. And so when we took a look at those savings, that's one of the ways we were really able to justify that now was a good time to do it.
I think we have to be very careful. Since the state decided we're only going to have 2 buckets, when we had 7 buckets, it was easier to define where the money came from and what you were using it for. So think about it as your home budget. At some point, you have to put windows in. I'm saying that because I have to put windows in. But there's a fund that I'm taking the windows out of, and it's a matter of saving. You just don't buy something like turf or windows on a whim. So I think that we have to be careful that every time we spend money, I think we do pretty well with what the state gives us, which, by the way, they've cut already, even before it's been published, our budget. So, yes, we want to pay our employees. Yes, we try to find ways. We've gone out to get grants. But at some point, you can't let the house fall apart either. And the field at Northrop is in that kind of shape. And so as stewards of taxpayers' dollars, that we have to take care of the facilities too. So I think we've got to do a good job of telling you where the teacher pay comes from, where does the turf come from, and we got to not think we're going to go like this all the time. Because we've had to go out to give referendums to fix our buildings, because at some point you have to take care of facilities. So I just need to keep saying that to people. Every dime, and if you notice, love teachers, I was one. But we have to pay bus drivers and classified assistants and other people too. And that's a part of that's why the educational fund and some of that stuff was set up. But we have to still think like we have 7 buckets. Because I don't think you expect me to start moving money around that wasn't intended for the purpose it was raised for. We have to take care of facilities. And there's never a good time, Maria, never. No matter what it is we try to do, there's somebody that says it's the wrong time. We need to deal with this field. So, it's up to the board to decide if you want to do it or not, but we're real careful what we bring you. We've had pressure for the last probably 7 or 8 years to do turf, because everybody else was doing it, but we didn't have a way to pay for it. And so we brought it when we thought we had the money to pay for it, but we're not stopping something else to do the turf. So I hope that's something that's real clear to people listening. This is not taking away from something else we need to do.
I have one more
Steve, you going to be okay with the Bruin?
Huh?
So you're going to be okay with the Bruin?
I side with
No.
Steve.
I would rather see
I
a
like-
generic emblem or no emblem because
no
you
emblem.
have all these other
But
schools
what
that are going to be
hap-
using the
But
facility.
let me say, what happens if over the next 4 years or 5 years or whatever it is, we manage to put in turf at the Snyder practice field, the South Side field, the North Side field, and the Wayne field? Then what are we going to do? I mean, personally, I think that should be our goal. And each of those others should have their logos.
Well,
I'm
they-
going to
get
let
below
the
the line.
administrators figure that
Yeah,
out.
right.
Like,
It's starting to get below the line.
That's below our pay grade.
Way below the line. So I can appreciate, and people, we've had these conversations, but I think that's why I make those decisions so you don't have to deal with it. Because everybody that wants the Bruin logo, there are 2 people that won't, and then all we're going to do is start an argument.
There you go.
I think it's a good thing that we are putting in front of you a turf.
Oh, but someone will complain.
So
Let's just
what's
put
on
the
it?
American flag there.
Yeah. I just think that's just a conversation you really don't want to have.
I think there's lots of ways for each school that's using the facility to show their pride. And
Yes.
they've got a big marching band, they can put as many
Exactly.
banners as they want, and they
Yep.
can have
We'll
flags
figure it
running
out.
all over the field.
We'll
They
figure it
don't
out.
need a logo.
We'll figure it out, but I'll just say
All right,
again,
let's vote.
below the line.
Ann?
I have one more question. We have an annual maintenance agreement with this company, which seemed like a good deal for field cleaning, high-powered magnet sweep, all-purpose field disinfectant, turf inspection and repair, and the GMAX impact testing. And that is, those items you listed, that's only once a year?
Yeah, it's an annual maintenance package.
Okay. And so you mentioned a little bit about what our people would do to maintain it. Can you?
Correct. So inside, or if you imagine the tufts of the grass, it's infilled with crumb rubber, and it's loose. So, corner kicks and in front of the goal, midfield, that crumb rubber over time gets kind of kicked out of place and moved out. So this is a comb that goes over the whole field and just kind of levels that again. And then there's just some areas that you might have to add some that they supply the material and train us on how to look for those low spots so you maintain a nice even playing field. But it's very minimal maintenance. They recommend it's literally about 2 to 4 hours a month.
So is it completely flat? It doesn't have to be crowned like a grass field?
It does have a crown. It has
Okay.
a slight crown, not
Slight
as
one.
much as what it has
Right.
currently. It's about a 6-inch rise in the middle over
Okay.
the whole field.
And Darren can give us what our own personal, because see, Sodexo is our custodial. So what are we as a system going to be required to do, and what are they doing? And like do a crosswalk so it's real clear what our responsibility is and then what they're getting out of the grant, out of the contract. Would that make sense to do that for us?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Thanks, Darren. Okay, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous, awesome. So now we have a report, a board report, improving communication between Fort Wayne Community Schools and stakeholders. So, Dr. Robinson, is this
It's a
you
conversation.
presenting, or?
It's me
Okay.
presenting.
Yeah, so in your packet, you have, if I can find it, here we go.
And this will be up on our website. We had the PTA Founders Day, Steve was there, Maria was there. We talked about some of the topics that have been out and becoming a part of issues with communicators with us and our stakeholders. And so this is like the beginning, and I promised them an outline. But more than that, what are we doing and where can they go and how can we communicate better? We're a large district, and no matter how good we think we are, when you have over 30,000 students, you could have 100,000 parents and grandparents and numbers of folks. And it's almost like that telephone thing that you tell one person, you think you said it well, by the time the 10th person get it, it's not the same. So what tonight is intended to do is not really a presentation, I'm going to walk you through, because the big intent is to have this on our website. And it's intended to be on our website, and we're going to invite parents to look at it, to give us feedback, what's missing, what more do they need. The goal of this is improving communication. I'll also remind you that this Friday we have our work session on the balanced scorecard. And part of what we're going to really be focusing in on, you'll see here, is what can we do better? How do we measure what it is we do? So if you just go to the first slide, I think we just always need to be reminded that as a public school system, in particular Fort Wayne Community Schools, you have a goal. You have Goal 2. And the whole concept behind Goal 2, as you can read it there, is to engage students, families, and community. And we added to that 2 of the posters that we have hanging. So if you go to the next slide, it's just the Goal 2. And the reason I put it in, if you look down into key strategic components, this board decided what ought to be important. And all of those A through D are the things that people are telling us that they have questions and concerns about. And so it's on us to figure out how we constantly communicate what we already have said in our goal. If you look at the next one, it talks about the moral purpose. And I think what we talk about is that we have to constantly remember that while we have children as our main focus, we also have to think always about staff members and about parents and community members who are attached to those kids. So for us, it's how do you personalize everything? How are you precise? We think we have procedures, but if people don't know what they are and if people don't understand how to manipulate what we do, then we have to see how we do better. And then the whole professional learning is not just for us as a staff, but what do we do with kids and how do we help parents even understand better? So the next one is just this concept of the pyramid. And I think sometimes you as board members get a lot of concern around some of the readiness to learn or the things around discipline or things that support kids. But as you know, when we were talking about the new curriculum, we also had parents talking about academics and how they felt about what we were doing. So I want to remind folks that when I talk about these avenues for communication, it doesn't always have to be something you're concerned about. We really need a vehicle for you to share what you see and what you need to have us work with. So how do we communicate? This is a diagram we put together just this week because one of the things I think is always a stumbling block is where do people start? And I realize that you as board members can get information and you pass it on to me. But I think one of the things that I want to try to talk through with this diagram is if you look in the middle, it's the students, it's the parents, it's the community, but it's also our staff. Because the staff members, just because they work for us, don't give up their right to be able to tell us when there's something that they have as a concern. But I think one of the things that we need to understand is that there are lots of layers in this district. There's a school layer, there's the level, John and Get, and people who are responsible for the schools. There's the district, and everybody thinks that's me, which, okay, that's what you hired me to be responsible for. And then there's the board level. And if you see the arrows, we all have to talk. And what I appreciate with the board is when you find something out, you let me know. And vice versa, I try to keep you informed. But this is intended to have people understand. You need to go to the source close to the issue first. Because it's okay, you can come directly to me, but then I've got to go back through 3 or 4 layers to figure out where it was, which delays an answer. So one of the reasons that the board and the levels are here is if you try to resolve an issue and people ignore you, you don't get any feedback or any kind of response. You should go directly to the board if that's what you want to do. But if you get an answer and you don't like it, we still are going to end up going right back to the source because at some point we have to resolve what it is that we need to do for kids. So just a document, we'll continue to kind of refine it. We want communication, but we also, as large as we are, have to have a process for getting things resolved. If you go to the next slide, one of the things that trips us up, and when I met with several members of the community, people who have an issue with us don't understand that if there's two parties, we are not going to talk about the other party. And as a school system, we're held to a slightly different standard. David reminds us all the time that while you may want to know what happened to the other child, discipline or any kind of a situation, what we are going to do is to tell you what happened to your child and how we resolve your child's issue. But we won't be sharing. That's just something that we have as a policy and a procedure. They're federal guidelines. We didn't use the word FERPA in here because everybody don't want to know what that is. But that's just something that's really, really important for people to understand. We're not ignoring, but that's just not something we're going to do, is to tell you all the time what we did in the other situation.
You know, you're right, Dr. Robinson. That's probably one of the most, obviously, it's frustrating for parents, but, you know, that's the law. I remember I was talking to a parent of a student who another student was harassing them, and you know, the school said the issue had been dealt with, and the parent was saying to me, well, now the one student is just glaring at my student in the hallway. And I said, well, first of all, you don't know, and you will not be told what the consequences were for the other student. And I said, so you're telling me the harassment has stopped? And he said, well, yeah.
Well,
so, I mean, you know, it worked, but, and that's a frustrating thing for parents, but that's part of the privacy law, is we just can't share those things about the discipline involved with some other student.
well, and as we keep going through this, because I want to make this as quick as possible, but here are all the tools that we need to have people get more accustomed to. And one of the biggest complaints, as I was talking to community folks, is you can't find anything on the website. So starting last year, we are totally revising our website, because it doesn't make any sense to tell you the information's out there if then you can't find it, because that's frustrating too. So this is just the cover of the main tools that we're trying to steer parents to so that we have it collected. So let me let me address the last one. We have a learning management system that is right now internal. We have a couple of schools at every level trying to pilot. How do you get parents access to that? So we're not ready to go live yet, but we realized that when we were talking about the curriculum work in the fall. Parents have got to also be able to deal with what is it we say is our curriculum? What are the things that they can get as resources? So we're doing some pilot work now. Before the end of the year, we ought to be able to, before the next year starts, to talk about how parents can even have access to what we're actually doing with curriculum. So if you keep going.
Dr. Robinson, that climate survey, is that going on currently?
Here it's
Because I thought I just saw,
Yeah.
okay, I
All right.
thought I just saw something
So
on
let me
social
give you
media about
information
that.
on both of them. This is how you get to Let's Talk. And one of the reasons this is going to be on the website is for parents to go in and look at it, and whatever they have a question with, let us know what wasn't clear or what you need more information on. FortWayneSchools.org, very specifically, this is how you get to Let's Talk. We have an app. You can download the apps. Make sure if you're not at your home and you want to add something or communicate with us, Let's Talk is the official vehicle, okay? It's also how I track whether issues are being addressed, how timely they are, okay? If you go to the next one, this is just a screenshot of the first page of the website. So we're not quite done, but what I wanted to point out here is when you go to the green that says About, as soon as you do enter the website, this comes up first. The arrow, we've had lots of conversations around bullying. So if you look down below, we're trying to put everything. There is, for example, a PowerPoint that we've developed for middle and high school students. We're going to put any and everything we have about bullying under that topic. So parents, easy to reach if you want to know all the things, definitions, presentations, videos, resources. We're trying to gather it all, and this is one of the things that parents said to me, it's hard to figure out where you go. Well, there it is. And this is a part of the new revised website to make it easier. Those topics will change as there's something else that becomes an issue. We're always trying to put it in the first page in the About. And so if you got on your website and looked at it, this should be up there now, okay? If you go to the next, this is the survey. We've done a climate survey every year This one is to parents. It's out there now, but it's about your school. There are some questions interspersed about the district, but the intent of the climate survey is for schools to figure out how their stakeholders feel, so, and they use this as a part of their school improvement plan. So what are the issues facing their school? So that's out there now, and there are different kinds of questions interspersed with it. We gave the website also where you can find that, okay?
Are the questions in the survey, do they ask tough questions, or are they seeking a certain answer or slant or point of view to make them look good?
I don't even know how to answer that.
Okay,
Because why would we ask a question if we already knew the answer?
Well, that's one of the accusations that I got in an email was, gee, this was a waste of time because this was geared towards getting positive feedback about your school rather than really getting to issues that people care about.
Well, I
So
would
is
say-
there a generic place where you can add comments at
Let's
the end
talk.
of it?
Well, yeah, see, that's the thing.
I mean, you're going out to get feedback about that school, and most people are pretty positive about their teacher and their school. So is there a place for them to add comments if there's something that's bugging them, like busing or whatever?
Okay, there's two purposes. So let's talk is the immediate topic-driven, because if there's something we need to, this only happens once a year.
Right, but
All right,
I'm just saying,
so-
the survey itself was criticized by a
Okay.
parent
All right.
because it seemed like it really didn't, it asked, the kinds of questions it asked were geared to generate a certain answer.
Okay. Well, one of the things that we do with the climate survey is there like some generic kinds of questions that you ask in a school setting. And part of what you also do is you can compare yourself to other districts based upon some of these generic questions that we're trying to get. So obviously, not tonight, but you go on the website, we'll get the survey, and I'll have you answer that question. Because I think that if the questions, this has been going on, how long have we been doing the survey? 10? 6 years. 6 years. So I think we're trying to, from year to year, figure out is there any consistency and where are the bumps. So if you don't mind, in the interest of time, we'll come back to that survey, because I think you have to look at it, and then you tell me what
Just
you
to
think
follow
about the
up,
questions.
and could we, without going online, just have the survey instrument itself without having to go through and complete it or to stop it? I would like to know the questions too.
And I'll get it to you, but I
Okay.
think part of the reason for the online is if you want people to give you what they think, if they think you collected it, this doesn't go like directly, the school gets the aggregate scores. So if I'm a parent and I want to tell you what I think and I know I have to go hand the survey to the principal, that may make me a little uncomfortable. So the principal gets aggregate numbers, they don't get Mrs. Jones said this. Let's Talk is where Mrs. Jones puts her name on it. But I think this is a topic we'll come back to. I'll even have it before this Friday and let you look at it.
Great,
Okay?
thank you.
All right, if you go to the next, obviously, we have had some safety and security concerns, and we've also talked about bullying. So let me just kind of cover what we tried to put, because one of the concerns was we don't know what you do. So what we tried to do is to remind people, we have a director of safety, Mike Manuel's back there now somewhere. He's our new director, maybe out in the hall. But what we have to have by state law is a comprehensive district-wide security plan. And it's collected every year, it's revised every year. I won't read through all of these, but I'm just at one spot telling parents what we're trying to do for safety. If you go to the next, continuing what we're trying to do for safety. If you look, it also interspersed like intrusion detection, which are I don't want to talk too much about it, because if I told you everything we did, then it's not security anymore. But there are facility things that we've done, as well as training and staff. So if you keep going, all of these are resource officers. One of the questions I was asked was, I'm being told that principals are told not to let resource officers arrest kids. They're police officers. And when you have them in your buildings, they don't give up their ability to arrest. But we have talked to people about, what are you arresting kids for? Because once you get them in the system, it's hard to get them out of the system. Now, kids who are committing egregious acts, things that you would get arrested for in the real world, we have never told our resource officers that they can't arrest kids. we told the school administrators, what kind of relationships are you having with kids? Why are these things going on? And why are you having a child arrested? But if you even look at our discipline code, there are discipline and actions that requires a child to be arrested. So that's just something that's out there. The discipline code will be up on the website too, because people need to see that, no, we have not told police officers not to arrest kids. So if you continue, this gets to, and when we were talking about the legislative thing, these are just the required safety drills we have to do. We've also completed an audit from the state every year because they check to see if all the required things they ask us to do, if we've done them. So if you go to the next.
Do they have data on how many schools have had to be evacuated because of fire?
If they
I mean, the way schools are built these days, I mean, brick doesn't burn, cement block doesn't burn. I'm just curious.
If you
One
go
a
back to
month.
that list.
One a month seems
Yeah.
kind of crazy to me. Let's see. How many fire drills is that in a school career?
You're a math person, we can't count. But
104?
But say, for example,
104, 105?
the severe weather. Well, we're in Indiana, so it's just like at your home. There are some things that you have to have practice for kids to know what to do. And God forbid if we did have a fire and we didn't know what to do. So, I mean, I see a reason for it, but I just want people to know that these are all the things that we practice with kids. Now, sometimes, and we will be dinged on the state audit if a school didn't have their fire drill by a certain date. So we've gotten dinged by that. That's how well it's monitored by the state. So if you go to the next, transportation. This is always, and part of what we have to make sure that we do is some of the safety and security things we have at the building obviously don't translate to the busing, but we still have the same discipline code. We still have the same expectations. So if you go to the next one of the things that you've approved as we bought buses is the conversation around bus cameras and GPS and monitoring stops. We have mobile units that the police department, when we find out that there might potentially be an issue, the police department works with us. We have a coordinator of student management who works with the police to figure out where there are issues that we have to be more mindful at bus stops. If you go to the next, bus driver training, and some of what has become at issue in some situations is that people don't want to do what we expect them to do. So there are very specific programs that we have in terms of how we train our bus drivers. And for those of you that try to just transport kids in your car, imagine the difficulty of an 84-passenger bus. So there's constant training and monitoring that we have to do. The question also becomes, well, if you got cameras on the bus, I want to see what happened. Well, it goes back to the same thing with the privacy thing. If we can't isolate your child, we're not going to show you a whole bus full of somebody else's kids. So that's something that we try to manage also. If you go to the next, bullying has become not just a topic in Fort Wayne Community Schools, it's international and national. And so this is where I showed you the arrow on the website. All the things that we're going to talk about are on that website, because I just think people don't know where to look for it, and they don't know what resources. If you go to the next slide, this is only part of the definition. It would have filled the entire screen. But we're telling parents where to go. The state website is pretty good. There's a lot on it, almost too much on it. But that's what we're trying to get people to see, that there are resources.
I'm curious. It says including verbal or written communication. So I'm assuming legally, social media and things like that, that's also part of the bullying statute, correct, David?
It is, and
Okay.
especially with teenagers, that's probably the most vicious.
Right.
Cyberbullying, yeah.
Because everybody has a website and everybody's on social media. And that's difficult to track down sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
but we still try. If you go to the next, this is also where Let's Talk. We talk about, someone asked, one of the questions that I was asked is, can you anonymously report? Well, that's, when Glenna was asking the question, that's where Let's Talk comes into play, because you can immediately tell us without waiting for a yearly survey. So we even are entering in how they get the Let's Talk app, and that you can get on your phone also, okay? So if you go to the next slide for me, this is interesting. In Let's Talk, we've had 64 concerns expressed about bullying. 100% have been addressed. Notice I didn't say resolved, because even if we address it as a school, if either of the parties involved are not happy with the answer, it's still not resolved. And so that's why it continues and continues, and you get some of the notices. I want to know, superintendent, if it was ignored, but if we've attempted to address it. So we do look at what's in Let's Talk, and we do monitor the responses that people get through that Let's Talk. That doesn't mean everybody's happy when we're done with it, but that's what's been monitored in Let's Talk just this year, since September.
Can I ask a quick question? Can you, so a parent or somebody, a student, reports something on Let's Talk, then what happens? Because I think that's where, you know, it's one thing to say, well, we've addressed 100%. Was that an auto reply? Was that somebody investigated? Did they pull in the parents? What is the procedure, and how long does it normally take to address the situation?
First of all, I can't give you a timeline because it depends on how complicated the situation is. But the expectation is if we get a Let's Talk, it goes immediately to the school, because that's mainly where they are. Also gets notification that there's a Let's Talk if it's something that may involve phase. So remember with Let's Talk, anybody who might touch that issue gets it immediately. Okay? So then we have to ensure that the school, if it's at the school, because we could have somebody accuse somebody at district level of a situation. So it depends on who the person is responsible for that.
Dr. Robinson, is that a person sending that out? Or is that, oh, okay. I didn't know if that was
But
built
it's
into the
automatic.
software.
Yeah, why don't you come up and talk? Because we enter, all of the people at central office and schools have been trained how to enter it. But talk a little bit about the complications of the Let's Talk system, Kristen.
So what happens is if someone goes to our website and fills out the bullying report form, or if they just go to the regular Let's Talk area and select a school and put in a dialogue that way, it goes into the system and it is immediately routed to whoever needs to get it. So like Dr. Robinson said, if it's a school that's selected, it immediately goes to the principal, to that principal's director, to Mike Manuel, because if it's bullying, then we want our security director to know.
Is that done by the software?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Gotcha.
that's immediately routed
Gotcha.
to them. And then they're supposed to respond within 3 business days, and our average is about 1.4 days to close out a dialogue. And so when we looked back through at those 64, it was various amounts of time. Like Dr. Robinson said, some of them were a lot more back and forth. It took more probably than 3 days to set up meetings and then finish off the issue. But we can go back and look at how were each of these addressed.
Is there an auto-generated, if I submit anything on any issue to Let's Talk, is there an automatic acknowledgement that we've received your message, thanking
Yes.
them for that? Okay.
Yes.
The other thing is we do monitor a school's response for their Let's Talk. How many days is an issue still lingering? So when we set up the system, we were asked for certain situations, like something comes to an elementary school, who are the other people you want to get it? So it's automatic, but we determine that who else gets it. And that's done also so that something isn't dropping between the cracks, because more than one person got it. So, thank you, Krista.
Krista, as we continue to, I like the new website. It's cleaner, and there are additional buttons with respect to this issue and other issues too. But I just went to I know I shouldn't have my phone on, but I have it on. And I went to the search mode and typed in bullying, and I did get some information. But I still think that in that search mode, there may be additional links that we need to play with that I think would be helpful if someone is using the website in that fashion.
Yeah, and I will tell you, so the search function, we have had to completely build that ourselves. We used to rely on Google to do the searching for us, but we were advised to do that in-house. So since we're not Google, it is taking us a while to catch those things. So if you see things you think we should find, then email us and we'll get it in there.
When I punched that up, there was some extraneous stuff that had no relationship to bullying, but given that it's a front burner issue, it might be something that we might want to play with or address.
Sure.
Do we have an ongoing campaign within the schools themselves where we are training the kids on what to report and who to report to and so forth?
Let me keep going.
Okay?
All right, so the bullying prevention programs. The state has their footprint all over bullying because it's obviously a huge issue everywhere. And so probably 2 or 3 years ago, they started providing what they call model programs for the training of the students. So if you go to the next slide. This really outlines, and if you look at the website we have down there, there's a complete PowerPoint of the program we've been using at middle and high school to train students. And that was something that we adapted from what the state, because everybody is kind of required to do this training. And there are even deadlines for who we train, what time of the year it's supposed to happen. And so what this also reminds us, and when we have people tell us that something doesn't make sense to them, then we need to go back, and we had this conversation with administrators last week, that just because we have the system, it's on you to make sure that your parents in your district know it. That's why we're putting this out there. So if a parent has a concern, here's what's supposed to happen. Here's an example of what it's supposed to look like.
You know, as I was thinking about this subject as I was driving here, it occurred to me that in a community of 40,000 people, on any given day, there are millions of human interactions that are occurring in our buildings. Millions. And when something happens, when an interaction goes off road and someone believes that they've been mistreated, there has to be some investigation on some of those issues. And I'm wondering what the sensitivity level is or the understanding from our perspective, because our folks are dealing with this on a daily basis. And yet I know that sometimes the expectation is from a parent that as we begin to do that investigatory process, they're somewhat taken aback that we're asking questions of their child or of them, and they're wondering why we just don't accept what they've told us. But that we cannot do that. We have to gather facts. And I'm just wondering how much training, you talk about student training, but how much training or reminders do our adults in the building get with respect to that process?
That's the next slide.
Good, okay. Keep my mouth shut.
Well, but see, this is the reason why that I'm putting, this is all here, because you put it on the website and you remind people. And every slide here is of our own people. These aren't like fake slides. These are real people who work here. The bully prevention, we are required, we have all the administrators that go through it, we're working through all the schools, but you also have to imagine, with 50 schools, there are people who are trained to go deliver that, and it takes a little time. So what we try to do is to do as much as we can in the summer. But here's what, that's Renee Albright, and I just know how she is as a teacher. One of the things that help is when teachers own the fact that whatever kids I have in front of me, I should know them. And I have to be also mindful and watch out for kids. And if I see something that isn't something that should be, then that's where the administration needs to step in. So for us as a community to even begin to deal with, bullying is just pervasive. I mean, adults do it to adults, and it's just something that we've got to commit to everybody knowing somebody and everybody making kids feel that, my own grandkids, we have convinced kids that if they tell, they're being snitches. And see, that's just something that the whole community has to kind of help kids understand. No, you're helping us be safe. But look, we're required for staff. But here's what the state has done and here's what the world has done. So the teachers are supposed to teach the kids, figure out all the other social issues they need to have, be mindful of how you're going to stop bullying. And so you try to have all that conversation with teachers, but here's what we also know we have to do. We have to check back to see if it happened. We have to do it more than once a year. But yes, the same thing with kids. Kids have to know how to stand up for themselves, but the same thing for staff too. So this is a wake-up call that we can't just assume that people got it. How are we going to constantly kind of measure and go back and see if it's happening? So if you keep going, how can stakeholders help? And if you saw the picture, Jen, thank you. The ultimate goal for us are kids wearing those caps and gowns. And for most kids, they're going to be with us 13 years. And as good as we think we are, there are always things that we need support from. And this is one that we have really got to talk with our stakeholders how they can help. So if you go to the next slide, first of all, help us by using what we put out there. Now, we can't stop people from being on social media, but the Let's Talk tool was adopted by this district as a way, and you heard Krista talking about a day and a half, 3 days is really lengthy, and us tracking whether people are actually being heard. That's one of the tools we use. We need for parents also, we're going to give you all of these resources from the state. It's all going to be on the website. It's too much. It'll take you a year to read it all. But as a parent, help us, the grandparent, talk to your kids about speaking up to an adult. You know, if you think there's something happening, that adult, first of all, should be your parents, but teachers, and let us know. Because if we don't know, we can't try to address it. The other is familiarize yourself with the resources. You know, we're going to put, every time we find another resource, we're going to put it under this heading on the website. We'll talk and put in newsletters. You know, here's a new resource, a good one for parents. And then the other one is, and you know, I debated putting this on here, but just commit to giving us time to try to resolve it. Because what people are starting to do is we're jumping over steps, and then when I get it or you get it, we're going right back to the first place, trying to investigate, when what we want parents to let us know is if your school is totally ignoring you when you bring an issue. That's an administrative thing for me. But if you don't like the answer, that's a different thing. But my expectation of administrators is that they know the kids, they know their parents, they communicate, and we're going to commit to making sure that the training people are supposed to have, that it's available. And whatever resources are out there, communicate that. So the next one, just what questions? And the intent is, this is the first step to having what parents ask for. What do you do? What's out there? How am I supposed to know? And how do I communicate? So questions.
I know that Let's Talk has the customer service piece. When are we going to have that go online so we get feedback from the parents who do reach out, and we know then whether it's resolved or needs needs to be addressed in a different, just the feedback component for the customer satisfaction that we've talked about over the years, but it seems to be the last thing that we ever implement.
Every time you enter something in Let's Talk, you get to enter a feedback score as to how well you thought it was resolved.
Like a happy face or a frowny face?
No. We'll bring you and we'll have a conversation on Let's Talk, because it's been about 6 years since we've done that. But everything has a feedback score for that person to be able to.
Okay, so every interaction you have with like a school secretary will have that as well? Like, and then your talks with your teachers, and then your talks with principals? I mean, is there that feedback collection mechanism, the customer service portion of the Let's Talk in place? And
okay,
do we have plans to, well, because we have parents who are important stakeholders, and there are serious issues, but there are also just the day-to-day interactions that it would just be good to know that, you know, we're putting our best foot forward every single day with every single interaction.
Okay, so that's two things. Okay. The Let's Talk feature, we'll go back over and review what's Let's Talk. And how do people rate? People can rate, and it's not a smiley face, how they feel about the answer and how they were what customer service they felt they had for Let's Talk. The other, when you start talking about day-to-day actions, that takes it to another level. So part of what we have to talk about when we get into the balanced scorecard is what do you want to measure? Because whether a person is customer service oriented as a secretary, that's a part of their evaluation process. Because if their complaints that this person is always mean to people. So that's what I think we need to talk about. First, I'll tell you what happens with Let's Talk and how people measure their interaction on Let's Talk. Now remember, anything that happens is supposed to be entered in Let's Talk, even if somebody called us.
Right, that's why I'm,
Okay.
I know they
Right.
have that component as
Right.
part of their program if we want to utilize it.
We do.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll talk about how we use Let's Talk. The other is, and that's something that you as a board are going to have as a conversation when we get into the balanced scorecard. So there is the ranking of the service they believe they had in resolving their Let's Talk issue. But you said day-to-day. So that's a totally different, Let's Talk does not measure day-to-day interaction unless a parent says, in Let's Talk, this is what happened, here's the answer I got, here's how I feel about how I was treated. Yes, we do that. Okay. So that's a conversation we can have, but Let's Talk doesn't measure day-to-day.
Okay, and then what's the rating, the overall rating that we've accumulated thus far on those interactions?
Okay, so when we do the Let's Talk presentation and conversation, we'll look at all the different reports you can have and look back over what's been the ratings that we have on certain types of things. I didn't come tonight to talk through all the things that's in Let's Talk. But
Do we have a
we
date
did.
for that? Are we going to do a working session on Let's Talk? Okay,
We need to, obviously.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Any glaring misses from this? I think I tried to cover some of the issues that I sent the email about, concerns that have been raised. So this is just the beginning. The biggest thing was, does the website let people know where to even find it? On the website also, I didn't point it out at the time, there will be the form you're supposed to use to report it. So there is a form to report if you feel that there is bullying. So, any other questions?
Who's our security director now? Because I know we used to have.
Mike Manuel. There he is.
Hello. You've got a big job.
Mike.
I'm glad
He hit the ground
we have a
running.
face to go with the name now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's see, that brings us to the close of our meeting. We next meet on Monday, March 25th. And so that just leaves board member comments. Steve?
I had a pretty busy week, much of it spent in Indianapolis. Started on last Monday, I was a chaperone for students from Westville High School, where my brother teaches business courses, and he is also the DECA sponsor. And it's a school of about 300 kids. They have no football team, so they have no synthetic turf to worry about.
Don't play soccer?
Probably not, but he had 24 kids at state, which was a big deal.
Wow.
So his wife, my sister-in-law, and myself served as chaperones for the event. I'd never attended, and it was quite interesting. But while there, I obviously ran into some of our folks, including Charlene Breedemeyer and Reggie Norfleet, who were hosting their own teams, and it was very impressive, the day. So went to Indianapolis, came back to Indianapolis Friday for an Indiana School Boards Association meeting on Friday, and during a break ran into Danny Costerison, who is head of the school finance officers or something like that. I'm not sure of his exact title. But he's intimately involved with ISBA in lobbying the state, and thanked us for our efforts on 246, which was a big deal, that we were able to turn back
that the referendum?
It was on
Bill.
when we could or could not hold referendums.
Right.
And I will tell you that he said that Senator Cruz in particular said he had really no opinion on it and was going to vote for it until we voted and expressed our concerns with him and Justin Bush and Senator Brown. So we did make a difference. And, I think we need to educate our group a little bit more about the process, because I think some folks get a little nervous about, what is this going, when I make a call, is somebody going to talk to me and confront me, and am I going to get into a yelling match with somebody? And it's not. It's not. And I think that I've got to hand it to ISBA. They've really empowered us to become more actively involved in it. And, that participation made the difference. And boy, if we widen that group of people to include, parents at all of our schools, I think we can really make an impact on legislation. If we pick our fights and we're organized. So anyway, I just wanted to report back to you that that was discussed. Saturday, Maria and I drove back to Indianapolis, and thankfully the rally, I'm going to let her tell you about the rally, but we were among a group of, 1,000, 1,200, mostly teachers, and it was, we did a picture, posted it on Facebook, and it got the attention of our FWEA president, so we joined them, and they were very, very appreciative for us representing the board of the district at that rally. But anyway, I'll let Maria fill in some of the blanks. It was a good week.
No comment?
Thanks, Steve.
No, I want to hear from Maria. No comment from me.
Nice. Well, like Steve said, we went down to the ISTA rally on Saturday. It was really exciting to see so many teachers rally at the State House. There was a line to get in and a sea of red inside. And teachers around the state used their teacher voice to talk to legislators about pay, not only for teachers, but for education in general and public education in the state of Indiana. So as Steve mentioned, the power of social media, we were standing in just a crowd of people, and then we posted that we were there, and Julie from FWEA was able to say, hey, we're on the second floor if you want to come up and see us. And so it was just really exciting to see so many FWCS schools represented. So just thank you to all of them. It was really humbling to see their excitement, and I was probably more honored to be there on behalf of them than, and they were just so very appreciative, like Steve mentioned, that we were there, but I was more excited to be there to support them. So thank you. Last week I was also had the opportunity to attend the National School Board Association. They held a webinar on school safety with the previous superintendent of the school where the Sandy Hook shooting took place. And so that was a really great webinar in terms of school safety and what they learned from that experience. So I've talked with Michael, and we're going to set up a time. The webinar left me with a list of questions to ask, which some of them I had already asked, but others I have yet to ask. So very excited to have that. And then Julie and I actually got the chance to attend the continuing education graduation last week as well, and so that was really just heartwarming to hear the student stories and see over 200 students receive their GEDs last week. So congratulations to all of them. So.
Thanks, Maria.
No comment.
Jordan? Dr. Robinson? No? Okay. I don't know who Dennis Mahoney is, but he had a letter to the editor in the paper, and it was awesome, discussing the teacher shortage and the teacher pay issue in Indiana, and basically urging the Indiana legislature to, get something done. So thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Like Maria, I mentioned, I attended the continuing education graduation. It's always such a really wonderful night to see people who have persevered through, sometimes I say life gets in the way when of your education, and for some reason, and we heard several stories for these students who were not able to finish high school, but, really persevered through a lot of adverse circumstances to eventually, some of them got their diplomas and some of them got their high school equivalency. Stories about taking the tests over, the math test and the English test over and over and over again. But they stuck with it. And it does remind me of the bill that is currently in the Senate, House Bill 1404, that wants to have the State Board of Education develop an accreditation system or a grading system for high schools that includes postgraduate outcomes, so that, schools are judged on what students do 6 to 12 months after they get out of high school. And, when you see something like, sometimes life just happens. And that's not the school's fault. Sometimes it's not even the student's fault. But sometimes education has to be delayed. I think the important thing is that we, luckily, are able to offer programs like the continuing education program that offers opportunities for students, for adults, to get that education to better their lives. And I just, I just think that's a silly idea to evaluate high schools on what students do 12 months after they've graduated. And I will just mention this one thing that's in this Indiana Education Insight. I mean, we've all heard a lot of horror stories about, or bad stories about virtual education, but here are some actual statistics. Last school year, 17-18, there were 851 students who attended the Indiana Virtual School. And of those, 504 of them, that's over 60%, earned 0 credits. And that school got, Kathy, do they get 90% now or do they get 100%?
They get 100%.
They get 100% of funding for every one of those students who earned 0 credits. Now, Dr. Robinson, what would happen to us
We're in the wrong
if
business.
60%, let's ask Gary, what would happen if 60% of our students earned 0 students?
0 credits.
I mean, I will credit State Board member Gordon Henry, who said, if this isn't a scandal, I don't know what is. The problem is that, he's only one voice. Nobody else seems to see that it's that big of a scandal. And they are doing some things in the state legislature with a couple of bills to kind of address that, but it's pretty weak. It's pretty weak. So, anyways, that's all I have. So, no other comments, or anyone want to?
Move for adjournment, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Maria. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the microphone is open.